Hello and welcome to another edition of Sunday Night Soccer here on our YouTube channel, Straight from the Training Ground. I'm here with Mike D. Got a special guest with us here tonight, Mike D. Who do we have that snuck in?
We have Jessica Kennedy, one of the most badass ladies that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. She's one of the icons for the Women's Street Soccer League that we have here, the Bridge Street League. And she also is the founder and owner of Zoo City FC. Now, Jessica, please tell the people what that's about, because it's amateur arena. Is that how you would say that? I just educate the people, I guess, because it's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So for the women's side, we are actually professional on the women's side.
Nice.
And finally in a very professional, very well-organized league. And this year in the WMLIS, which is the Women's Major League Indoor Soccer, we will be able to compete for a $25,000 cash prize, which is obviously what we're going for. Nice. It's indoor, it's arena. So we're in a hockey rink with turf, just like everyone plays in rec league, although the rules are a little different. It's a little bit more fast paced than the rec leagues are. And then this year we just started a men's team, and the men's team is semi-pro for this year in the hopes of they do well, they move up to the pro league next year.
What makes it pro over semi-pro? What's the distinguishment?
Realistically, it's the distinction that it's the highest league that you can play board. Realistically, in the terms of, like, if you're looking at it NWSL or MLS, we're obviously not being paid that money. It's starting off slow, but we're hoping, the league and Zoo City ourselves are hoping, the more it gets attention, the more people are excited about it. There's a lot of people that still don't even know indoor soccer, you can play it at a higher level. People just think it's only rec. So we're hoping the more eyes we get on it, the more people that get invested and interested in it, then we can be, NWSL level, MLS level. But the only distinction is that we're the highest level you can play.
No, that's a great distinction. So I apologize I screw up introductions all the time. So I definitely screwed that one up. Jessica, I apologize, because professional and semi-pro is way different. Being at the top level is an elite status that you deserve, and I've seen how good you are. So my apologies. Yeah. So arena soccer. So I'll dive into this before we get into our topics today. Jay, you ever watched Arena?
Just a little bit, yeah.
So it's really digestible, and I think what's different about arena soccer than the other, because you have less people on the field, like futsal, like street soccer, and the other things that I conduct, you get a little bit more highlights, because you see more 1v1 situations a lot, and it's very fast paced. So you're entertained the entire time. So I do think arena soccer is on the rise. I don't have the numbers to back that up, but and I know before in the 90s and like early 2000s, arena soccer kind of did take off a little bit.
Yeah.
Remember, I remember, like, and I know in Michigan specifically, there was a Detroit team.
Yeah, Cleveland had a team.
Yeah, and I remember being super. And I remember there was like a 2-point line, where if you scored behind a certain line, there was. So it's not like that, is it, Jessica?
No, there's no 2-point line these days, but I will say, if you've ever played rec indoor, the rules are generally you can't slide, you can't kick it over 3 lines, things like that. But in our league, you can slide, as long as you don't slide something into the board, because that can really mess somebody. And there is no 3 lines in a lot of circumstances, so you can have what people like to say, a cherry picker. Well, that's the name of the game. If you're not going to defend me, I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to score a goal.
So there's no offsides?
Nope, no offsides.
Nice. Okay, changes tactic.
What I like to tell new players to our program, because we do have a lot more outdoor players that are interested but have never really played. And so I always tell them, take all the rules in outdoor soccer that like offsides, this and that, throw those out the window. The only thing that you need to do is take the ball from your end to their end and put it in the back of the net. However that happens, there's no set rules. There's walls, bounce it off the wall. There's a backboard, bounce it off the backboard to yourself and score a goal. It's a lot more creative, and it's a lot more back. Whereas sometimes you can sit for 90 plus and only see 1 goal. Whereas our men just had their first friendly yesterday. which we won. Thank God.
Against our boys in Indiana, our guys.
Yes, against
yeah, I love those guys. Shout out to tell me the team name again.
United.
Say it again.
Summit City United.
Summit City United from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Those guys came down to one of our tournaments thanks to Jessica.
Yes.
And I fell in love with that whole group of people. They're just good people.
Yeah.
So
and the boys on a show.
Glad they lost, but
they put on it was 11-8. So it was back and forth goals left and right. You know, and there's also, you know, the dribble up PK, which obviously in outdoor you don't get to see. So you don't get to see people like taking people on, you know, it's like hockey, but soccer. So you get to see somebody dribble up and take somebody on and then put it in the back of the net, hopefully.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I like how you speak like a real are you the coach of the team then as well?
So the very first year I was solely just because it was our first year. I don't know many people who know arena specifically. So it's hard to get somebody in there who knows how to coach it. Because I feel like a lot of outdoor coaches come in and they have outdoor tendencies. And so they want us to drop back and realistically in the arena, when you're not countering, you're going to get screwed. Like if your first instinct is not to go towards the goal, 9 times out of 10, they'll come and they'll pounce on you and then they'll score a goal. So instead of the whole build up and wait for the right moment, it's more like, how can we catch them off guard and how can we get it as quick as we can down there?
So do you believe that then it's more of an attacking mindset that's going to be successful then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I always tell everybody who I coach, I now coach the men's team and I don't coach the women's team anymore. Thankfully, I found somebody to coach the women's team so I could just play. But I always tell them, you always at least have to fake like you're going to go forward. I'm saying don't always go. But your first instinct when you get the ball should be to make that step forward to make their defense drop.
You create some space, yeah.
Drop, you're on the counter, you get a goal. If their defense drops, then you go, okay, I'm going to pull it back, I'm going to pass around, and then go.
You know, that brings up an interesting – go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
Let me interrupt.
Yes.
Breaking news. We have an Eric in the building.
Oh.
This question's for you, Jessica. What is the process for a franchise? I think maybe he wants to start his own team.
Hey,
yes, he does.
More career.
He's probably going to name it the Cubs. But how would one do that?
Double
Jessica?
E's. Yeah.
So,
what's up, Eric?
So, I will say the easiest way would probably be contacting our commissioner. We have a website and an Instagram and a Facebook, as well as our male counterpart, which is the MLS, Major League Indoor Soccer. They have a website and Instagram and everything as well. And on there is our commissioner's information and actually a lot of articles that say, like, if you're interested in joining a team for the men's or women's league, you know, who to contact and who to ask about all those things. There's a lot of things that go into it, but I will say comparative to an NWSL team or an MLS team where it's going to cost you a crazy amount of money to start a team. This is relatively new and it is at the stage where you can get in before it becomes very expensive to do that. Because unfortunately in US soccer, no matter what, you have to pay for some reason.
Welcome to the soccer neighborhood.
And so it's not a very lengthy process. It's usually how I went about it is I asked them if they were ever willing to do a women's side. And then am I still frozen? Am I frozen still? Oh no.
You're good. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm good now. Was it maybe just me? Sorry to cause panic.
No, you're fine. I thought it was me. And so it started off with me just asking if they would do a women's league because they only had the men's league. And fortunately enough, they came back and said, actually, we're thinking about starting a women's league. And so we had a couple conversations. I really respect the way they run it. I really respect the way they go about it. If you have a conversation with them, they won't lie to you about what's expected of you and your team. They won't, they won't try and hook you in with, oh, this, and this, and then none of it be real. You know what I mean? I've had some experiences in the past where someone gave me this idea of what it was going to be like, and then it was not that at all.
Yeah. A lot like our presidential election. Yeah. I get that 100%.
So I really appreciated all the talks that I had with our commissioner, Dominic. He really explained a lot of things, and he actually helped me out with a lot of things. I mean, I'm very new to this. I've only ever played this sport my whole life. I've never once even thought about owning, running, doing any of that. But unfortunately, where I live, there was nothing. So if I didn't start it, no one was going to. And I wanted to play that badly that I started.
I love that. That's what you need, though. A lot of the things that you see, I feel like in America, is rather than them seeing that opportunity because you want to play, they see that opportunity because they feel like they can make some money. Yeah. And the fact that you're doing it because you want to play and provide that opportunity is such a different reason. And I think this is why, Jessica, you and I see eye to eye on so many things. I mean, it's the passion alone. Like, we love the game. We love the community that it breeds. We love the culture that it brings. And it's something that will always be part of what molded me and something I always want to be a part of. It's a beautiful thing. There's so much to it. And there's so much I get out of it, especially when I play. Now, for me, you still get to play. I don't get to play as much anymore because of my body. So I'm finding different ways. And what's nice about what you've created, and to give you kudos, by the way, Jessica's done a great job. Your marketing and everything that you do for Zoo City is so on point. I dig it. I don't know who is in charge of all that.
Me.
You guys just do a really good job. Jessica, you kill it. You kill it.
Everything. In order to selfishly not have to pay anybody,
I know, no doubt.
Because also, and it's one thing I do tell people, especially when they do ask about coaching positions at our team, is I'm more player focused than I am coach or team focused. Like, I would rather spend the money on our girls and our guys having decent training gear, decent warm-ups, decent equipment to play, instead of worrying about paying some coach who may or may not know what he's doing. Thousands.
That's great. It's a good point.
I don't see the point in it, especially when there's only about a handful of people that know and understand arena enough that I would even trust to pay that amount of money. Yeah. So, and they're already running their own teams. So obviously not coming my direction anytime soon. So if I'm going to pay somebody, I would rather pay my players and me take on the burden of coaching and figuring everything out than spending all this money on all these other things. And my players looking around going, well, what do we get? Like, what are we here for? Because 100%. That's
100%.
Hey, Jessica, real quick, are your 100%. Games, the other Eric is in the building. I want to know, are your games streamed or anything? Is there anything online?
What's up, brother man?
Yes. So a couple of our last year's games are up on our YouTube. Last year, since that was the first year we kind of streamed, it was very rough, very minimal, very like
this show.
2 cameras, and that was about it. Although we are getting a broadcasting team to come in, so we are going to have a broadcasted game. They will be available on the broadcasting team that we're using. They have an app on like Roku and things like that, so people will be able to bring it up on their TV.
Nice, man.
To get some like local bars to maybe just, hey, if you have a Roku or a Roku TV, pull our game up, just to put it out there for other people to watch. And then that will be then kicked to our YouTube, so people will be able to watch it live on our YouTube as well as watch it afterwards and like that.
Is there a way to put that in the link, Jay?
Yeah, we can put that up.
If you have that, we'll put that in the link for this show.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you this right now, the Neighborhood Soccer Rebellion and all that, we will make sure that we put that, when you guys have games, and we'll promote that because I think it's awesome. And let me tell you this. So I went to Seven Monks, which is downtown Grand Rapids, and they were playing a live pinball that was in Grand Rapids. So you were watching a live stream of pinball happening and people were mad excited about it. So I just think like the more like I don't know, like especially in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where I feel like hyper local is kind of what they're all about. Maybe I'm wrong there. I just, when I go there, I get this feeling that they like hyper local. So like, there's those bars out there that will definitely do that, and maybe that's a niche pocket that you find to bring more awareness to this. There's my beautiful wife. Yeah, where do we get Zoo City merch there, Jess?
All right. Well, so right now we are, so I don't know if anyone really knows, but like you can see here, this is our old logo. It was just a very, very simple version that I just made up the first year because I didn't know what I was doing. And so for this year, new league, new logo. So it's the same.
Sponsored by Yeti.
No, I wish.
Oh, okay. My bad.
It's the same gist of the logo, same colors, just with a differentiation on the lion and how it's put. So we do have some of our old merch that will only be selling at games just to kind of get rid of the old stuff. But new merch, the league has a partnership with Admiral, which they're kind of not known very well. But they do a lot actually in the soccer, with soccer kits, soccer clothes, soccer merch. So they will hopefully here within, whenever I finish all the business things I have to do, set us up an online store where people can buy our new merch with the new logo. And then that way too, it'll be that we don't have to carry so much personally at games. We can have people go online and buy it so that we don't have to so much. But I am planning on having custom merch at games that's different from the Admiral merch, just to kind of entice people to also come to a game. Like if they really like a shirt and they think it's really cool and it's one of the ones that they can only get at the game, I hope then that entices them to come to a game, even if it's just to buy that shirt. I don't care. Just come to the game and buy that shirt. Just some more like cooler pieces. So mostly at games, but whenever we get our merch site up, we will definitely be blasting that out all over Instagram, Facebook, everything.
So go to games. And then at like Danielle's saying, we're hopefully going to get some pieces that we'll have at the new underground, the Soccer Rebellion facility that we have coming out. And then the viewing party is a great idea, by the way, Jessica. For one of your matches.
You guys
just saying.
Beer, and then you guys can sit and watch our games.
Yes, I think that'd be really cool to have that.
Yeah.
So all right. So go ahead, Jay.
No, so that's awesome, Jess. We'll put links and stuff out there for everybody. Like I said, we got a lot of great questions coming in, so very appreciative for all you do. We're going to talk about women's sports here a little bit more at the end of the show. But before we get into that, our first topic this week is something we wanted to talk about last week, and we didn't get to it. So, well, actually, that was another one. But anyways, I digress. Quick recap of the U.S. and Jamaica game. They had a 1-0 win, and Mike and I thought this would be something interesting to talk about because I wouldn't say it's controversial, but it was kind of an ugly game. Before we came on the air tonight, we were talking about it was one of those games where any kind of a result is a good one. You can see the some of the statistics there on the screen. The U.S. men's national team, the average lineup was 25, but if you look at the lineup, it was a pretty strong lineup they put out there. I mean, it was a pretty strong lineup. 24 out of the 33 games against Jamaica have been decided by 1 goal or less, so a lot of tight games. The U.S. is 23-10 all time against Jamaica. However, they're 3-1-6 all time at Jamaica. So a lot of these games, in CONCACAF, when you have these away games, you're playing on, really dodgy fields, shady stadium situations, rough atmospheres. So we just want to talk about that real quick. They did come away with a 1-0 win, and so they play again tomorrow night. It's a 2-leg contest, and then if you see there at the bottom, the winner will get on to the Nations League finals in the spring and March, and then they also qualify for the Gold Cup, which will be over the summer.
So they play in the States on Monday. I believe it's
St.
Kansas
Louis.
City where they play. St. Louis. Okay.
St. Louis, I believe. Yeah.
No, I know my brother Eric that's watching this. He sent me tickets that were extremely affordable that I wanted to go to, but I got too much work to do. But here's what I'll say. Oh, 100%. Here's what I'll say. CONCACAF playing terrain is harder than anyone gives them credit for. Anybody, Honduras, Costa Rica, Mexico, Jamaica. That atmosphere is, you're not playing on a professional stadium. You're not playing in these clean cut, just what they're used to training for, pristine stadiums, especially when it comes to our players. I will challenge that to any country in Europe. I'll challenge that against any country in Europe that when you're in your league, for your nation's leagues, you're not playing in any terrain that we have. And I think that is a unique situation that we're in that will one day benefit us. I will say that. This game, when I watched it, is one of those ugly games. And you're watching the game, and you don't see the rain, but all you see is that ball slow down so much every time you're trying to make a 10-yard pass. And if you're a player, you know the frustrations that go into playing in a wet, soggy, soft ground, and you hit that ball, and then it just dies. And so you have to lift the ball a little bit. There's so much other technique that goes around it because you can't think as quick. Everything's got to slow down just a little bit for you to have more control. So I put this question on my Facebook, and I'm going to see what everyone says here. So Jessica, I'm going to ask you first.
Oh, gosh.
Is soccer, true or false? Does weather affect soccer more than any other sport? Now, I'm not going to, and the way that I mean it is, obviously you can't play in rain in baseball. Like, I'm not talking about canceling the sport, but soccer, most of the time, besides lightning, you can play through anything. You play through anything for the most part. Does soccer, more than football, more than any other sport, does weather affect the game?
I think I would have to say yes, only because myself personally, I've played some games where there are literal piles of snow blocking my avenue to the goal.
Yeah.
And it's a sport played with your feet. The only thing you can do is try to lift it up and over with your feet. Whereas, and I'm sorry if I'm going to offend anybody who loves football, I could throw a soccer ball in a snow game and score a goal, but I can't kick the ball through.
And I see 100%. Those are my thoughts exactly. And to me, it wasn't throwing the ball; it was carrying the ball. I can pick it up and carry it to where weather doesn't affect it. Yeah. In soccer, I can't do that. I can't pick see, I knew someone was going to say golf, but you can't. That's not true. That's not true because they won't. It's not true because you can stop things. Soccer, you have to do the same precision with your feet, and you have to do that multiple times. You have to play quicker. I think golf is just a step below, and that was the biggest argument on my Facebook, Eric. So I'm not trying to say that, you're stupid for saying that, but you're wrong because you can't, you have to play quicker. You have to play quicker in soccer. Like you don't have the same time to calculate and say, I got to adjust my shot this way because the ground's this way.
Yeah. Like
my only thing I would add is in soccer, the ball's on the ground the majority of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So CONCACAF, these guys train on fields that are 1.5 inches long. That's what they play on in Europe. When you play on a grass field that's 4 inches long, the ball's on the ground all the time. When you play on turf, that's significantly different. When there's puddles on the ground, when there's snow, the only part I would add is that, the people that don't play soccer, the ball is on the ground all the time. So not just the weather, but the surface of the field greatly impacts. And I know you could say a bad infield impacts a baseball game, those kind of things, but not like soccer where the ball is 99% of the game, the ball's on the ground rolling and bouncing around.
And where I will say also that foot-eye coordination is a little bit more difficult than hand-eye coordination. And I think that's the biggest piece to all that. But you're right. That's why I think it's so big, because how much the surface means. And the surface is obviously impeded by the weather. So I think so watching this game, you see that. And if you're a non-soccer player, you probably watch this game and be like, it's a little bit boring. But you got to understand how difficult all those things were. So besides the weather and everything that I saw, I was impressed by McKennie, Pulisic. I thought Pepe had a great finish in the first 4 minutes. Turner was unreal with that save. I think Turner made some really big saves. And I will say McKenzie on the back line was impressive. And I look at this team, and the same problem hasn't been addressed. Number one, I don't agree with the 4-2-3-1 system. I don't. And I get it. I think with Weah in there and with Tyler Adams in there, maybe this is a little bit better. Tyler Adams is just coming back, so I get why he's not playing. I'm not sold on Pepe. I like who's the guy we just signed that's English, that's up top. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Yes, it's like baloney. It's like
oh yeah.
All right. Anyway, it's I'm live. I get it. All right, I'm good. And so I also like Josh Sargent quite a bit. Josh Sargent does a lot of the work, but he doesn't finish the same. Pepe's got he's got a knack for finishing, so I'll give him that. Tessman and Cardoso were two guys that we were watching. They worked hard. They were gritty. They felt like generic, typical Americans. They felt like we had, they had Applebee's samplers in the middle of the field. So kind of just like a generic taste. Robinson surprises me he's he's been considered one of the best outside backs in Europe and some months playing for Fulham. His touch is just horrendous to me. Just the way he touches the ball, but he's effective. There's no denying how effective he is. He's just an athlete. I'm not sold on Scally, and I love Ream. He's just old. I love Ream. So I would like to see our manager take some more chances on the back line, because being from the United States and the way that our athletic culture is, I feel like that should be our strong point. And typically in the past, it has been. Back when we had Onyewu and Eddie Pope and all that, like that was a strong point. But as of right now, it seems to be our Achilles heel a little bit. And what I don't like, and what I still see, and I'll go back to the Holland game in the FIFA World Cup back in, 2022 in November, December? Was it 22?
Yeah, when it was in the winter. Yeah.
It was in the winter. Our midfield just seems so disconnected. And our back line gets so low at times when the other team's like Jamaica easily could have won this game. I'll say that. If you didn't watch it, Jamaica had 3 or 4 really prime opportunities that they just missed.
Jordan here makes a good comment. Remember, they had a penalty kick. Matt Turner saved a penalty. So.
100%. And then McKenzie's the other one when that ball was coming in from the corner kick. Ream doesn't have pace, but Ream's very smart. His angles are right. And that's some of the things that you have here with the American game is that you don't understand the angles as much as you want, because you're taught so much more athleticism than you are, I think, precision from defensive angles. And even from the system that I grow up in, defense isn't taught as much as offense. And that's just how it is. Once we saw the way that Messi, Xavi, and all them played tiki-taka over at Barcelona, we fell in love with that. And that seems to be the new wave, especially people that are millennials like us watching the game. We like the offensive side of things and the attacking nature. I know I'm an attacking coach, but some of the defensive nuances don't seem to be taught. It seems to be missed a little bit. And I think that shows up definitely on our national team, where angles, and if you look at Italy, like the way that Italy defends, every angle is so precise. Like the way that they defend, like coming back, they're comfortable off the ball and coming back at certain angles. I don't see that. I feel panicked when we lose the ball and any team counters. So even if we look like we're dominating in the attack and we have 70% possession, 80% possession, as soon as they start to counter us, I start to panic because I don't trust our back line enough. So Turner's fantastic. It seemed to always have a decent keeper as well, but I need to see the back line get better.
Defense
and I need to see our midfield.
I was just about to say
100%, man. I 100%. And we have a lot of prima donnas that are strikers, that are good strikers. Pulisic is, in my opinion, the best player to ever play for the U.S. men's national team. But I think that midfield is a little bit too disconnected. So I would almost like to see the 3 lower. I would rather see a 4-3-2-1. I would reverse that and to protect the back line a little bit more. But again, formations are a little bit overrated. We've talked about that before. It just seems to be the transition piece, going back to what Jessica and what the arena does. It's just not fast enough for my opinion. I think we get a little bit lackadaisical. The other thing I'll say is that when you watch the U.S. men's national team play, there are lows in the game that are so evident to where it just seems like they don't give two shits. And it kills me. It kills me. I do not see that with the women's. But for the men's, I cannot stand it. There are just lows where it just seems like we check out. And I don't get it. There's a lack of competitive nature in this team specifically. I will say the Landon Donovan and Clint Dempsey era, they didn't have this problem. And the Brian McBride, they didn't have this problem. This era seems that they'll go in lulls to where they check out.
Well, absolutely. I think that's a lot of the stuff that we got, with the previous regime was they were trying to play a certain way, play it out of the back, a lot of possession, and people argue that really wasn't our, calling card as a U.S., like you said, what's gotten us success, physicality, being aggressive, like you said, all those guys back in the day that you just mentioned. We all have to keep in mind right now, we're in a transition period where this was only the second game, with Pochettino. So is really the first competitive game with him. And so,
and look at the lineup he beat Jamaica with in Jamaica, and look at the stat. So I think that should give you confidence in our manager.
Yeah.
You pulled out a win, but going back to Eric E., Turner saved it, or whoever said that, it was spot on.
That was
Jordan.
Goalie for Arena, Jordan.
Jordan. Yeah, spot on. Without Turner, like that game is a tie game, and we all know when another team scores, when that momentum shifts, that one goal could have easily resulted in another goal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So if you're just joining us, make sure you check them out. The U.S. men's national team plays again tomorrow. It's the second leg. They play Jamaica. I believe it's at 8 p.m. Eastern or something like that, but it's in St. Louis. So it's an aggregate score. So they won the first game 1-0, and we'll see how they do.
And so, Jay, let me say this: if you're watching live right now, in the comments, I want you to say if you think that USA men's national team will win a World Cup in your lifetime.
Oh, there you go.
Jessica, what do you think on that? Because your eyes went crazy.
I guess I'm trying to.
I get it. I know it's hey, don't worry about what people think. I want to hear your honest opinion.
I think what you said. Now, I'm just also going to preface this with I've only watched 4 or 5 U.S. men's games realistic because they tend to not do so well. So usually don't see them very long in tournaments. So I tend to kind of knock off when the U.S. is out anyways. But actually, to kind of go back to what you said, the last game I watched, at one point, I watched the center back and the outside wings pass to each other 45 times in a row with absolutely no thought or want to even go forward. And I understand that we want to possess, we want to hold the ball. Obviously, the longer you hold the ball, the more effective you are. But a two-foot pass does minimal, if anything, in soccer. And so I never really see them go on a full attack where it's everybody's getting up, everybody's getting in, everybody's attacking. And I think maybe for the U.S. fans, it'd be a little more exciting if we saw them, even if they fail, at least attempt to emulate what some of the other countries do, which is some of these other countries come out in all attack, and all they do is attack.
Sure.
And I think sitting back in your defensive half, after a while, they're going to get the ball from you. After a while of just passing it back and forth between your back line, at some point they are going to step. And it seems that a lot of times then we lose the ball.
Especially against Mexico. And I think that Mexico presses us, and that's what we used to lose a lot to them. Yeah. But in recent years, so I'll say this. They are getting better at the buildup. It is when they're in the final third where they lose creativity. I think that's where we're looking for switches and we're looking for more options rather than just a cross over the top. I think we would get very stagnant to where we get to where we're trying to go, which is the wing. Robinson will overlap. Weah will be on the wing. Dest will be on the wing. And then we get stuck in those side spaces and we have no idea how to come more central and have more creativity. So we get stuck in patterns very easily. And you can tell that we have rigid coaching in the sense of there's a lack of creativity. There's a lack of intuition and know-how and how to manipulate space for us to be able to find different ways to get into the attacking channels. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so to Jessica's point, I 100%. It seems like a very generic brand of soccer sometimes, and it's hard to watch. And where you look at the women's, it's attack, and you see us getting on that front foot consistently. So I agree with that.
Absolutely. So, some great comments. We appreciate it. So again, tune in, watch them tomorrow, see how they can do. Hopefully, they can get another win. Moving on to our next topic. A controversial topic, but something we thought we needed to discuss. Parent-coach conflict in youth sports. Obviously, we all know this is quite an issue in all youth sports. This is not just soccer. But just some notes here real quick. Positive parental behaviors can lead to great outcomes. Parents' supportive behaviors are associated with greater sports enjoyment, continued participation. We talked about a lot of kids that quit by the time they're 13 years old. On the contrary, negative or pressuring behaviors can lead to fear of failure and anxiety. Just some notes here. These are not my own by any means. These are from some articles that we found online. Be a positive role model as a parent. Support the coach. Encourage balance, which encourage participating in other things. Not just one sport all the time. And learn and teach your kids how to handle failure positively. At the bottom there, those three topics are a couple of things that we think kind of lead to some of these issues. But I'll turn it over to you guys first. Obviously, we know this is an issue. It's been an issue for a long time in a lot of sports. But go ahead.
So here's what I'll say. There's nothing wrong with the dream that my kid wants to play in college and wants to play professional. There's nothing wrong with that. Where there's a disconnect of how obsessed the kid actually needs to be able to be that 1% to get to those levels. And that's where I think development is off balance because it's nothing you can pay for. The kid that's obsessed is going to be better than the kid that has natural abilities, in my opinion, and especially down the stretch. The kid that always wants to play, that just loves the game, that is going to end up playing that with more joy and it's not going to feel like work, is naturally going to be better. And when you're a coach, you can see work ethic pretty obviously from day one. You know what a kid's going to bring to the table. You know how he's listening to direction and his thirst for growth. And that trait is not necessarily a bad reflection of a parent. Now, I'm a parent with a kid that's 12 and 11, and then I have Gianna, which is 8 months old today. My two kids, I try to work with at home to teach them that you need to have self-development at home. Now, I can tell you from watching them play that when they play in games, I get frustrated sometimes with the way that they execute, and I've had to curve my behavior and letting them know that while they play. And that's a tough pill to swallow. So I'm not sitting here trying to lecture you. Putting my parent hat on is hard, especially when I don't always agree with the coach that my parents or that my kids have. Now, and I wish I could put them in better predicaments. Unfortunately for my daughter, she's in a predicament where I don't have many other resources because of where I'm at and my surrounding area and what she's able to play. Like there's not a lot of good coaches in the surrounding area that we would be able to get her to practice all the time. So it's a bad situation. And I feel terrible as someone that owns a soccer company and it's a soccer coach. So I do my best to coach her at home and do those things. But at the same time, she's a kid. and she doesn't want it the same way that I think I want it for her. And that's a recognition that I have to have, and it's a pill that I have to swallow. So as a coach, go ahead.
Jessica.
Jessica, go ahead. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. He's got to do it all the time. It's okay. I wouldn't stop until time out.
No, I agree with what you're saying 100%. I have a 9-year-old boy who now, because of how popular men's soccer has gotten, he watches Messi, he watches Ronaldo. His favorite player is Holland. Sometimes he runs around the house and just screams, Holland. And, so when I've never like pressured soccer as a thing. In all honesty, it's a little bit easier for me if they don't play it, because I do so much that it's a little bit easier when they're not playing it at the same time I'm playing it. So I've never been like, hey, you should do soccer. You need to do soccer. You got to do soccer. And obviously, though, because I play, they're really interested in it. They want to play it. And this year I am my son's coach, which presents its own challenges, because although he's my son, in practice, obviously when he does something and then another kid does something, I feel differently, because when another kid kind of makes a little mistake or anything like that, I'm like, keep going, blah, blah. But sometimes when it's your own child and and you when we play at home, I've seen him do better or do this or that. Sometimes it's very hard to look at him and go, okay, buddy, but I'm your coach, and I want you to know, like, next time this and this, maybe do differently. But then he's looking at me as his mom, and he's like, well, why are you telling me and not anybody else? And I'm like, buddy, I have those conversations with other kids. It's just, you're my son, so I find it easier to say something to you really quickly and then maybe talk to somebody else. And so I've also had to kind of sometimes at practice step back and watch him and let him make the mistakes and just be like, okay, I know in my heart I want to harp on him a little bit, but I wouldn't harp on one of the other kids. So I don't want to say on my own son. But I've also had a lot of parents who've come up to me and, we were talking a little bit before, the question of playing time always comes up. I feel like one, if you're a parent of a youth player, I understand that you, for your child, want to step up and you want to ask, hey, what's the playing time situation? Maybe why aren't they playing as much, blah, blah, blah. But most of those conversations start off with it immediately being something wrong with what I'm doing or what I'm saying or how I'm running it, instead of sometimes these parents looking at, okay, but I watched my child in the game today and they stood in the same spot for 2 minutes and didn't move. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain to you then as the parent why your child isn't playing.
100%. Because
the effort, and I always tell all the kids, for me, effort is way more important to me than anything else.
Yes.
I'd rather see you run your butt off to fix your mistakes or do this or do that than stand around thinking that you're amazing because your mom and dad told you were amazing, but not thinking that you have to actually do anything to be amazing. And I feel like a lot of these parents, like I said earlier, they come, they drop their kids off at practice and they leave. And so they're not sitting there seeing me have to redirect their child 8 times to focus on the drill that we're doing. Or, hey, quit chit-chatting. It is practice time. Get to practice. And so I feel like, obviously, I'm not saying every parent has to sit at every practice the whole entire time. But maybe if your child isn't getting what you want out of the coach, maybe it is sitting at practice and maybe watching how they do, looking at your own kid and saying, okay, yeah, his coach just told him to do something and he blatantly didn't even listen. And so I think sometimes parents need to also take accountability for the fact that these are their children. I'm not a parent, I'm a coach. So I shouldn't have to sit on the sidelines or sit in practice and parent a kid when I'm really there as a professional player to give them all the experience and knowledge that I have.
Yeah, so they should be able to come into the environment and understanding focus and attention.
literally, I'm not going to lie, out of an hour and a half practice, 45 minutes of the time is spent me going, boys, what are we doing? Or why are we kicking balls into the net during a water break? It's get water, come back out. And then I kind of feel like a little bit of an a-hole being like, what are we doing? But and my coaches were very much like, you get here, it's practice, you do what you need to do, then you go home. There's no talking about anything else but soccer while you're at soccer. There, and my mom was very much like, if you don't listen to your coach, I will take you off that field myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I just believe there's a certain respect for your coach, regardless of how you feel about them. And there's always conversations you can have and parents can have. But at the end of the day, we're taking our time to be the coach. And half the time the pay is
if anything. Yeah. It's volunteer hours.
You're doing everything that I need to be doing. At least as a parent, do what you should be doing as the parent.
Mm-hmm. It's very fair. Go, Jay, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, the two best things I heard from you, Mike D, in quite a while. No, just in this last segment. No,
hilarious, Jay. Jay, stop it. Stop being so funny all the time.
Listen, we have some great comments from Jordan again. Parents should not live out their dreams in their kids' sports.
Nailed it.
We'll get to the other ones here in a second. Yes. But you said that it's a tough pill to swallow. I think that we all need to, I do want to let everybody out there know that's watching this or that will watch this later on. All three of us are parents. All three of us coach. And all three of us, coach our kids or have coached our kids or been in those situations. And I think that when you mentioned about having it's a tough pill to swallow, but we understand as a coach, and I'm very thankful for that myself. I have two daughters, that play soccer, but they also play other sports. We're not any different from anyone else. That's the only thing I would like to share with everybody is that we're just like every other parent. I get frustrated with my kids. Like you said, Jessica, you get frustrated at training because like I know my kids didn't clean their room earlier, so I'm already a little bit more pissed at them than anyone else, right? And then when they don't listen, it's just you can't fight that. It's just real, right? But when I'm watching them play other things and someone else is coaching them, like you said, Mike D, you get frustrated just like everyone else. But I think what you were trying to say, we understand, like you said, you try to curb that enthusiasm and that enthusiasm and that feeling that you want to yell at them or cause a scene or yell at the coach, because that as a coach, we deal with so many kids all the time. We know that that's not a positive way to handle things. It's not going to help. And I think that if a lot of parents would understand that and just do that, it would help a lot of these situations. So I think that people need to understand we have those same feelings, or at least I don't want to speak for you guys, I guess, but I do. But, you have to let them. The second thing is, we've talked about this before on our show here, Mike, is that intrinsic motivation, and Jessica, I'm sure you wouldn't have gotten to the level you are as a player without this. Intrinsic motivation is falling away from our society, right? There's a lot of extrinsic motivation, and that motivation and that pressure from parents wanting their kids to do well, like we said here from Jordan, and then Eric D here chiming in as well. Be okay with your kids playing just for the love of the game. If they only love it a certain amount, and like you said yourself, Mike D, you love it. Maybe your daughter only loves it, down here at this amount. We have to all be okay with that. And there's times when I have to literally, I stop and I try to just enjoy it and be thankful my kids are playing sports, or that my kids like soccer, that they're out there. It's something that I love. And I think that's a lot of people have difficulty with that.
Yeah. And to your point, I think and there's a way to correct this, and I think there's solutions. So I don't just want to sit here and bitch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And as a coach myself, and I've realized this, and as I get more comfortable in this space as being a coach, I've now coached for 14 years, having those conversations with parents on your points of views. Excuse me. Wow, that came out. Points of views and what you're working on and what you're trying to see, to not make them so focused on a wins or loss perspective goes a long way. When you can tell them, say, hey, this is what we worked on practice. Now, this is what I'm trying to see in execution. And then a lot of parents that are listening to this, let me tell you this, when it gets to that higher level, what they do in practice is supposed to prepare them for games. If they can't execute, that means they're not ready for the next level. period. I don't know I don't know how to sugarcoat that. You have to be able to execute. That's what a coach is looking for. That's where you gain a coach's trust to play more. I know my players that in practice may not execute at the highest level, but for whatever reason, their focus elevates in a game. And that's something that you need to be looking for. And I think if you can help the outside influences like parents, like other teammates, kind of have a cohesive messaging with what you're working on within practice and what you're looking for in games, that will help a young player develop better because they'll understand execution. They'll understand roles and all those things. And that's ultimately what you're looking for. So I think there's things that coaches can do. And I know that we're all both on this side, but that there's stuff that we can do as well to make a parent have a little bit more understanding. And whether that's an email before the game or a whatever in Team Snap saying, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what we worked on. And so I'm looking for them to do this. And then also making
totally
sure that
agree.
you're doing your one-on-ones with your players, and talking about their evaluation and giving them a roadmap on how to success and what that next step looks like and what you're trying to do. Those are all crucial and valuable things. And if you don't have a coach that is that invested, that can roadmap what your kid needs to do to develop, I am sorry, he is not a good coach, or he or she is not a good coach. You need someone that's that invested, that knows what needs to be the next steps. And a lot of it's very simple. For a coach, you're looking at things that are very simple. Like you're looking at a first touch, you're looking at a pass, you're looking at vision, you're looking at certain instincts that might be hindering a player or hindering flow of whatever system that you have going on. So those things are easily identifiable. So if a player can adapt to that, adaptability is the best skill set you can have as a player. Because there's millions of different scenarios that you go up against in soccer that aren't by a playbook. There's no playbook for you. It's a scenario that you need to have intuition and you need to be able to make decisions to. That's why pickup is so crucial, because you're learning that confidence of making decisions. And so if a coach is telling you, here, these are the decisions I want you to focus on because these are your responsibilities, and they're having a tough time executing those responsibilities, you're saying a lot about the player. And there's got to be a conversation. If this kid really wants to get better, that's a great place to start. Is where's the lack of execution, in my opinion?
Well, I think, we're all three have been players, and I think that we're all kind of in some different age groups, but Jessica even alluded to the fact that even when you played, it was very cut and dry, right? You listened to your teacher, you listened to your coach, your parents supported that. If you didn't do it, then that was on you as a kid. And those things have obviously changed in all of our society. So I think, going to what you said, Mike D.
Not for my kids.
No, not yours.
No.
But I definitely think that you're from New York. I know. But I definitely think that communication is more important nowadays than ever, especially with coaches and parents.
Yes,
You can't just expect to coach and leave. You have to have some kind of a form of, like you said, whether it's a chat, Team Snap, an email. When you communicate those things, it does alleviate a lot of those things. So, very hot topic. I'm sure this will come up a lot more.
There's no.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I know I'm lagged here, but and that's what's difficult, I think, about our jobs, is that there's no blueprint on the way that this is all working with the spread of multiple different organizations now competing for players and the transfer portal and all that. Like there's no education on that, but those are the things that you need to be a little bit more transparent now. And that's bottomly what it comes down to. So we can do the best for players. Like, what am I going to get from you as a coach? What am I going to get from the culture of this club? And that just needs to be honest. Like one of the worst sayings I hate, I really can't stand, is
Defense wins championships.
No. Like, it should be, your reality is perception, not the other way around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes a facade is perception, and that's inaccurate. Like we got to do a better job as a society, especially in the soccer culture, of just being honest with what we're trying to offer. And to these, some of these, like, we can't all be offering an MLS route or a D1 route. Like, that's just not reality.
And some kids,
exactly.
So some just want to play.
Exactly.
Just to play.
And I think you'd have more kids that would be successful in soccer if they grew up with the passion to want to get to those next levels. But we're almost striking that because we're making it about the networking that you need to get to that next level as of right now in America's landscape, that we're taking away passion and love for the game way too early. And we're making it about, oh, you need to be at this elite level. You need to play in the super premier, elite level MLS next World Cup level. Like, if,
scholarship.
like it's crazy. Like, they just keep adding marketing adjectives to this to say, oh, this is not elite, this is super elite. And if you're not doing super elite, you need to be doing super duper elite. And it's stupid. And
then you're just elite.
Yeah. You're just elite. It's crazy. And so we're taking away seriously the fundamentals of what really develops a player, and that's passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So some great points there. I'm sure this might be something that comes up again later. So if you have some comments, please send them in to us. We're going to move on here real quick to our last topic of the night, something that we're very excited to have here for our guest, Jessica, here. And as myself, Mike D has a daughter, but myself coaches both of my daughters. We're going to talk about how has the culture of women's sports changed, Jessica, in your lifetime growing up, right? Because you're a female athlete. You've grown up around sports. Title IX started in 1972. But listen to this. Before Title IX, 1 out of 27 girls played sports. Now, 1972 to think, that's not all that long ago to think
right.
only 1 out of 27 girls played sports compared to the world that we live in now. Now there's more than 55 million women participating regularly in sports. Women's college sports has went from 15% back in 1972 to 44%. In 2022, women's sports drew 15% of all media coverage, which was the highest ever. Obviously, the WNBA, NWSL, the USL Super League, the Women's World Cup success, those things have all helped. The Women's World Cup in 2023 set an attendance record of over 2 million people. The Women's NCAA Finals last year, drew 10 million viewers. There was a 300% increase in revenue in women's sports since 2021, so in the last 3 years. In the UK, I found this very interesting. There are twice as many registered female soccer teams in the UK now than there were 7 years ago. The Women's Premier League, or the WSL in the UK, had 68 million pounds in revenue compared to just 23 years ago. So it's almost, it's tripled. And they have established relationships with the FA in the UK with 3,000 schools in 2019, which is now up to 20,000 schools. Those are relationships between the Women's Premier League teams in the UK. So, Jessica, obviously, you know more about this than we do. So we'd love to hear your perspective on it's got to be kind of exciting, I would imagine, but it's probably been tough growing up as a girl who loves sports.
Honestly, it really is. Sometimes even I say to my husband, I would have really balled out if I grew up in this day and age, because first of all, I'm gonna shout out my mother, who is the one who put me in soccer when I was 5 years old. That woman played, so she was born in 72. She played on all boys teams up until, she was older and they finally got a women's soccer team. She played in high school. She was All-American, All-State. She played with Brianna Scurry, who was the women's United States goalie. She played with and against her in Minnesota, where she grew up. And, up until she had, me and my brother, she balls out. And that's her popping up. She had to play with boys to even have the opportunity to play soccer. I grew up looking at her newspaper clippings in her little memory book of her being an All-State, All-American, playing with Brianna Scurry. She has pictures where they played against each other and with each other. And that was just in her lifetime. And when I started playing soccer, we didn't even play competitive until we were 11 years old. I never even learned or knew very much about moves, like 1v1 moves, until a male coach had a clinic with us when we were 13 years old. I didn't realize, and I didn't know, and I wasn't taught the I don't want to say selfishness, but the selfishness of taking the ball yourself and learning how to go around people and learning how to beat people 1v1.
Yeah.
You know, when I was younger, a lot of it was women's soccer was how do we play as a team, which is a great aspect, but it was never made known that we could individually be great. It was more of like women's soccer works when you all play together and you all hold hands in kumbaya. But in reality, when anybody, I think male or female who plays sports, there's a competitive nature that comes with playing sports. And Michael's seen my competitive nature come out in futsal quite a bit.
Hell yeah.
And I'm just going to say it. When I play soccer, my only intention is to beat you on the ball, put the ball in the back of the net, and win this game. And I think when I was younger, a lot of times I was pulled back from scoring too many goals to not upset anybody else, or playing this position instead of this position because this person really wants to play this position. And I think a lot of times, I'm 30, so in the early 2000s, a lot of times it was all about, oh, how do you guys make a nice team and play together and do this and that? And realistically, until I was in high school, I didn't even think I was a good player. I didn't really know I didn't have that self-confidence to be like, yeah, I'm a great player and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to ball. All the time in the back of my head, all I thought was, if I score another goal, is another girl on the team going to be mad at me because I scored another goal? Yeah. Or if I come out early, is somebody else going to go, oh, well, yeah, they pulled Jessica off because she wasn't playing? In the women's world, unfortunately, we've been kind of predisposed to, well, be nice. You got to be nice. And I think anyone who's ever met me, when I play soccer, I don't want to be nice. I that's the one time that I want to go out on the field and I want to break some ankles. I want to slide tackle. I want to go up for a header against somebody. I want to be a little rough and tough and then go off the field and be nice. And I think a lot of times when I was growing up for women's soccer, we weren't taught individuality. We were taught team. And I think on the opposite side for boys, they were taught at a very young age individual skill and then how to play as a team. And I think for a lot of girls who are 25 and older, we were taught how to pass and move before we were taught how to individually be able to carry the ball. And so now we have these new wave of girls. Like this last summer, I had to defend a 19-year-old girl who was just cutting left and right, scissoring, and I was like, I never did that when I was 19 because I really didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
And now girls are coming out, which luckily I'm so happy about. These girls are coming out and they're balling. They're 1v1ing people left and right and being able to beat them, 3 or 4 people. And so I just wish that it would have happened when I was like in the high school era.
Yeah.
Now just coming to fruition. And so my hope is that now that the girls that we have coming up, we can give them that, because I never had that.
I was about to say that, Jessica. So maybe that you didn't have that, but it's people like you that are giving these girls the opportunity to be able to have what you didn't have. And it's, you know, and all I can do is listen. And because I'm not a woman and I don't understand some of the things. And so it's interesting. When I first started coaching, my original thought when I coached girls over boys was that girls were better listeners. That's what I thought. It was hard to wrangle in the men, and there was egos that even at a young age. And so it was hard to make it about team for boys, and girls, it was much easier. I never thought about it about the flip. I've never. And what you just said makes so much sense. And it's the reason why I started the Soccer Rebellion, is because the individuality that I felt as a creator of the game is why I love the game. And yes, I love the team aspect of it. Most definitely. Not, I can't, like, my favorite play in a sport or in soccer is the assist or the build up when it's all connected. Like, those are my favorite moments of the game. But the individuality, the style, the swagger, the taking on 1v1, the unique skill set feels like a paintbrush in a lot of senses. And I never thought about it in that sense. So I'm so glad that you came on and said that, because that is huge. That is absolutely remarkable. That message is, yes, you be an individual out there. And I'll tell you this, when I watch the women's game, it is not the same game I'm watching as the men's game. And there's so many aspects to the women's game that I like more. And the fact that we're in a day and age now, to Jessica's point, to where it's new and you see these girls pioneering this space by being brave and being bold, there's so much more excitement to me in a lot of different ways, watching them break through molds and barriers all the time and teach me something every time I watch the game, because it's just, it wasn't the world that existed before. And I'm thankful for people like you, Jessica. I love the women's game and seeing what's happened. And it's because people like you are just tapping into it, and it's just going to be monumental. Like it is. It like the stats are showing, and it's not good enough yet. Let's start there. The stats that are there, great. Yep, it's on the rise. It's not where it needs to be, and it's not equitable enough yet. It's not. There's
Just my question for you, real quick: how do you feel socially? I mean, it does have to be kind of cool. I know you wish it would have happened earlier when you were younger, but as a woman, like you said, Mike D and I can't necessarily relate to that because we grew up differently. It's got to be pretty cool right now. I mean, there's quite a buzz around him, between, the Caitlin Clark and all this basketball stuff, the popularity of that, as well as, the women's national team has been successful for a while now. But the NWSL, there are a lot of stars now playing in that. The Premier League, in England has women's teams. I mean, is that something you feel good about? I mean, it's got to be exciting to be, as a female athlete.
Yeah. Because honestly, growing up, the only thing I had was male coaches. I've never had a female coach ever coach me in my whole entire life. Now, my mother, she'll probably say she's one of my coaches. I mean, yes, from the time I was 5 till the time I was 18. Actually, still now in the arena games, I can hear her voice on the sideline. But, yes, she's been one of my, coaches and mentors throughout everything. But realistically, in my whole entire career, I've had one female assistant coach. And so it's so crazy to turn on the TV and see like Emma Hayes coaching a women's team. The woman in hockey who is now coaching a men's hockey team. It's crazy to think about how I've never had a female coach, but now luckily there are a lot of girls and women who now have a female kind of, running the show. And nothing bad about male coaches, because I've had some wonderful, amazing male coaches that I love dearly. But I think the one thing about women is the reasons men play differ from the reasons women play. The reasons men go for a ball are different than the reasons women will go for the ball. What motivates the men doesn't always necessarily motivate the women. And what hurts the men doesn't always necessarily hurt the women. And so, being able now to have women coaches who understand some of the things about just being a woman in general, they understand that there's some things maybe you don't do as a coach for the women as opposed to the men. And I think being able to see that now is so crazy, because I tell you what, besides my one assistant female coach, I don't even remember seeing very many even women involved in any of the clubs, teams, or anything I've played on. Even the last 5 years as a semi-professional player, I have not had one female coach. I've had one for Muskegon Risers, Debbie. She was amazing, and I honestly wish I could take her with me everywhere I went. But she was the only one, and I only played for her for a very little bit because I was playing on 2 teams at the same time. But so I enjoy turning on the TV and being able to watch not only women's soccer on the TV, because growing up, I'll tell you what, there was never a women's anything on TV. Being able to see that, but then also being able to see when they pan to the sideline, not only women's coaches, women's trainers, women's assistant coaches, women's speed and agility coaches, women's weightlifting, and you know, all that. I enjoy seeing a sideline with at least one or two women. I think if you are in the business of having a women's team, if you do not have a woman either in your coaching staff, your training staff, your administrative staff, you're doing something wrong, because women at the end of the day need another woman to be able to go to express some things that realistically we're never going to tell a man, or we're never going to talk to a man about.
You're talking to someone who's coached girls for over 20 years.
And so instead of being like, hey, coach, can't make the practice because I'm not feeling well, and then a male coach being like, well, why aren't you feeling good? But, you know, whatever. Yeah. Where, you know, the women, we kind of understand why you might not be feeling well and you might not want to come to practice. And I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that, because I'm probably going to take that break too. Or maybe, like, I have kids. Maybe my day's been a little rough. And sometimes when I go to training, I don't want to sit there and go all out left and right. And obviously I'm the owner, so no one's going to say anything. But being a female coach, I'm okay if some of the girls want to do that every once in a while. I know for the women, it's a little bit more mental. I'm not saying it's not mental for the men. The men have their own mental, you know, deficits when it comes to the game and being coached and everything like that.
Oh, we have our deficits.
But, you know, so, you know, I give a little forgiveness.
Especially that guy.
For a lot of things that I think
men, Jay.
And I think men owners wouldn't give the same sort of forgiveness, just because they don't know and they don't understand, which is no fault.
Yeah, but, and it's so accurate in the sense of when you're a coach, your relationships depend on how you can develop a player. You need to know how to relate to that player, get the trust from that player. And like you're saying, Jessica, like there's just a level of trust that is going to be difficult to get to without an understanding. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, like I have Autumn Ackles, she's my assistant coach in my varsity coaching job, and she brings in a different viewpoint as far as the mental goes with the boys, to where it's just something, not the way that I would see it, where I'm a little bit more rigid. Like she's got a little bit better of an intuition on what's going on mentally with them. Yeah. You know, and so she brings such a value. So yes, whatever you want to call it. I didn't want to say that, Autumn, but it's just, it bounces off well. And what you see though, my point is that you see the skill sets and strength that she has that I just don't have. Yeah. I guess I innately don't have, and so I would imagine in the women's sports, like not having that, there's a little something that's lost in translation, to where maybe a woman doesn't feel like she can be as uniquely herself, like you're talking about, because she just doesn't necessarily feel seen or heard. Yeah. So I went under,
like an athletic trainer, or even an athletic trainer assistant. I think every women's team should at least have one woman that they're seeing, even if it's just once a week, to get their ankles taped or something, just so that it doesn't always feel like it's a space congested with, a bunch of men saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Because
and don't be sorry, Jessica.
No, but totally understand.
I played this sport since I was 5, and I will still have some male coaches or male this or that, especially when it comes to the women's side, look at me after I make a suggestion or because, you know, once I hit 26, I started realizing I don't really care. I'm just going to start telling these coaches what I think, because at this point, if I know the younger girls can't, and I'm old enough to where I'm like, if you kick me off the team, I don't really care. So like I started the last couple of years really kind of, I wouldn't say pushing buttons, but really being like, but why are you talking to not only me like that, but I'm assuming if you're going to talk to me like that, you're going to talk to the younger girls like that. And these are some 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old girls.
Good for you.
And like, but then when I do kind of be like, well, you know, I think for the women's league or, you know, or this or that maybe we should do this or this because I think the women would really enjoy it. Or, you know, we haven't gotten this in the past years, so maybe something like this would be nice. And I've had some of them look me dead in the eyes and go, well, I don't know if you know what you're talking about. As a woman who plays women's soccer and now owns a professional team and has played at a very high level, I think I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. I'm never going to claim to know everything. But I also have the privilege a lot of times on these teams of being the oldest girl. So a lot of the younger girls, a lot of people will come talk to me or, you know, just be like, oh, coach said this or that. And a lot of times my first instinct is like, what the okay, first of all, why would he even say that? What? And second of all, why are we saying these things, or why are we women these things when they're a woman? Like, first of all, not that they might not know about the women's game, you know, a lot of them have been in the women's game for a very long time, but at the same time, it's like, well, you wouldn't ask a blind person how they can read when they know from the braille. Like, obviously, if you're going to ask somebody about a topic and they're the subject of the topic, they are predisposed to know more than you.
Correct.
So it was really, I will say last year, it was really jarring to go to league administrators and give an opinion or a thought about maybe different ways we could do things or different things that we might want to change, and then being told that I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. And I think it's like the biggest slap in the face to be told that you don't know what you're talking about something that you've lived for 30 years.
Oh my God, that's wild.
And so
it's a lot of people speaking for you.
But obviously I can't, because also then if I do, they'll go, well, see, she's getting all crazy. She's yelling, she's whatever. And I find sometimes that I'm not saying anybody needs to cause any riots or do anything, but all I will say is this: is sometimes
I'll burn this mother down.
Sometimes they won't listen until you give them a reason to listen to you. And the last couple of years, I've really tried to hone that in when it comes to, especially my team, my players, my girls, and what I want out of our team and this new league that we're in is I'm going to challenge everything because I own the team. What are you going to tell me? No, I can't do that. It's my team, and I will do with my team and my players as I see fit. And if you're going to give us the short end of the stick or make us the pre-game to the boys, I'm not going to sit and do it. I'm not going to be a pre-show. We are the show on a lot of different occasions. So there should be different days, different times, there should never be a point where a women's game is at 5 and a men's game is at 8 because you want the women to be the front runners for the men.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Jessica, you just got me wanting to run through a wall right now. Like 100%. And listen, yes, Jordan, you're absolutely right. Like, that is not even arguable. Like, that is the best. That is spot on. And I'm super proud of you right now. I'd like, get on your soapbox. Like, hell yeah. And a lot of that just needs to be heard. And, you know, the game isn't the game without the people. And then sometimes we overlook that aspect. And from what I'm hearing Jessica say right now is you got to be able to listen to the people that are actually experiencing it and stop talking for them. Shut your mouth and listen. And Jessica, I tell you, you have my full support. Whatever I can do, what you're doing is tremendous. Like, I freaking, you got me fucking jacked right now. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that shit, but yeah, girl, like, go on with your bad self.
No, you are one of the few, and Jay, you too. You guys are a few of the men who have come into this space and given the space back to us instead of coming into the space and then taking over the space for yourself. And I find that a lot of really, really good intentioned, great hearted men will come into the women's game and really from the start want to help and want to progress and want to do this. But then once the progression does happen, or once the attention does happen, then they go and see, I did that. And it's really hard when, because it's great when you open the door for us, but then it's a punch in the face when you tell us that you did it, because you opened the door for something that was already here, already a very viable sport, already a very heavy hitting. No offense to the US men team, but the US women have been winning for years.
Throw your shade, girl. Yeah.
For a reason. And so if you are a male who wants to help out in the women's game, the women's sport, open the door and then walk away. Open the door, leave the door open, let us come through, and then go to the background. Not that there's anything wrong with what you've done. We would love to give you the credit. And honestly, most of the women will give the credit back to the men. But it's when the men take the credit away from us before we can say, and you know what? Thank you to Michael for starting the rebellion. You know, it's a lot different when we as a team or players say, hey, thank you to this person for the support and the thing, or that person going, well, I supported this and I did this and I brought this around.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You didn't bring it around. It's been around. You just helped. So sit down. We'll take over.
Jessica, that's awesome. We appreciate it. And you know, someone, like I said, who's coached girls for a long time, and I also have two daughters of my own. It's great to see and hear, you know, a strong, athletic, confident woman like yourself. Really appreciate it. And Mike D and I,
you got to see her ball out, by the way, because that's a different thing.
Oh, don't forget,
like, show Mike Tyson someone's ear. I swear to God.
Streaming online. Okay, we're gonna watch online, and but no, honestly, it's great to see and hear all the great things you're doing, not just for soccer, but for all the younger girls out there in your community and everywhere else. So we really appreciate it. Make sure you check out. We'll put some links in the description below. For Zoo City, make sure you check her out. Follow them on social media. Before we wrap it up, I do want to give a quick shout out to High State men's soccer team. Coach Mazinoff, I was there this afternoon. They wrapped up and won the Big Ten championship. So that was great against Michigan. Got a 1-0 win. So congrats to them. Jess, Mike D, thanks as always. And until next time, we'll see you guys. Send us your comments. We'll see you next week.